Hey folks, how's it going? For those of you that are about to join in, we're going to be doing a little bit of a stream, finishing up on a page, so I'm sure we'll be able to chat and talk as people maybe kind of jump in at some point. As per usual, these are always kind of pop-ups, and usually we'll post also on social media, on Instagram, on stories as to when they will go live. Uh, Sometimes it can be like a half an hour prior, 15 minutes, but either way, today we're going to start right up. So basically, just to kind of introduce what is going on, let me also jump onto the stream on my iPad so that way I can check out the chat while we're hanging out. So basically today is the day in which I want to finish up this last page of the next book. Obviously, the prior streams, you guys have already kind of seen some of the stuff I've been working on for the pages, from the military vehicles to the fish and whatnot. So it's been fun, and everything pretty much is now stacked here. I mean, these are all the pages I've had to work on now. So it's all here, it's all done. I have to basically from this point to make books essentially. For those of you that have any interest in making actual books, art books, educational books, sketch books, for yourself to be able to sell or to have as a physical proof and item to be able to take to shows or even just for things like portfolios and websites and whatnot. Um, this is quite an endeavor to make any sort of book if you've never done it before. But basically, now that you have all the originals, or I have the originals right here, I will scan all this individually, and I have a large bed scanner in which I will then go onto Photoshop and clean up. And why you are not seeing text on any of these pages, because we'll put them in there afterwards on usually what I use is InDesign. InDesign is basically the best sort of like book design program that I've come across. I'm sure there might be some free ones out there, but either way. So that's the totality of all the book paint the pages. Now, granted, even though it seems really thick, you have to understand that the pages here are themselves not super thin. This is right now I'm using the combination of things. I have this paper that I'm also using. This is a Bristol paper. Typically, you're looking at about 9 by 12. This is 100 pound, so it's a pretty thick paper on this one. And so just to be able to take in the ink, but also to keep it nice and flat, I wanted a nice crisp white paper. So that's the kind of paper I'll be using in a combination to also sometimes I'll mix it with other types of Bristols, just smooth Bristols. I've also used a marker paper as well in combination to this. So they're all generally within the same sort of poundage of weight and general similar sort of feeling of surfacing smoothness. And they're all the same size, 9 by 12. But that's what I've been using for the originals of the book. But anyways, from there I'll scan all this stuff and then we'll put in the text afterwards. So we're gonna finish it up today. This is the last page for the book and everything that I need to do for Dynamic Bible 2. Afterwards, once we scan everything, then like I said, I'll clean things up and add the text, put it into the organization of the file, drop in any additional pages of things I need to do, and from there on, it'll go into hopefully print. So basically, what I'm going to sketch today at this point is basically a wrap up to the final chapter, which was in fish marine life. It's not a complete diverse in terms of marine life, and mostly focusing on fish, even though there was a page in there with a cuttlefish drawing. Um, from there, I'm going to basically finish off with an image I'm going to just create out of my imagination. So what I had as a note, because I have obviously all my thumbnails and notes for the book layout of all the stuff of the page I have to do, because I have to write everything down. I'm going to do an image of a fish man fishing, basically. I always love this imagery. I've drawn it several times in the past. I'm not going to draw the exact same thing I've drawn before, but basically the idea and the concept was, I like anthropomorphic animal, sort of human type characters, humanoid type characters, animal influence. So I have a fish dude, which I'll be sitting like the edge of a pond or a rock, and he's fishing basically. So typically I have like a pose of him that I would have him like pulling the rod and fishing basically. What's he fishing for? You little humans? I don't know, but basically that is the idea. I always like the kind of contrasting or even the sort of the irony of images sometimes. So I'm gonna have him sit somewhere right about here. The image will be about that big. I'm gonna have a fishing rod coming up that direction over here as well too. I'll get to some of the questions in the chat as we kind of go through our night. Right now it's about 9:45, and we'll probably go about a good hour and a half or more or less. And we'll see if we get some interesting questions and whatnot. So put those of you that are watching for the first time, do understand if you're joining, welcome. These sort of live streams are very open-ended in terms of having conversation, questions, thoughts, that sort of stuff. At the same time, I want to make sure that the questions are relevant, so I'd be moderating myself. There's no one else here with me. It's just me doing this. So I'll try to do the best I can to get to your question comments, but I may not get to all of them, especially if they're not relevant. First thing right now, what I'm doing is just trying to feel things out, like where it'll go. When you guys sketch, direct with pen and stuff like this. Right now, I'm using this is made by, who made this? Zebra. I just picked this up today at the art store. This is a Zebra brand. I picked it up mainly because this is a felt tip brush pen, but it does use permanent ink. So as being waterproof permanent ink, it's good for things like washes and watercolors. Obviously, I'm not going to do anything like that here because this is all just black and white. But in the future, for sketches I do that are watercolor based, I mean, this kind of pen would be really nice for that. Um, so let's start right off, and I'm just gonna get a feeling of where I want to go. I want to have him like leaning on one arm back this direction. Let's see. Kind of want to have him like more portly, a little bigger. So the first thing I want to start with is just the eyes. We're not doing a constructive approach here. We're doing more of a straight image because I'm treating this not as a study but more as a illustration because it's supposed to be the final piece in the page of the book. So I wanted there to be this sort of nice image that kind of sends off the book as a final. He's going to be somewhat of a mixture of fish of things, maybe like koi type, freshwater. So that'll be his face right here starting off with. And this is just kind of giving me a sense of like placement, context. Again, I have a sense of an idea as to what his posture pose will be. I may not follow it directly. More than likely change it. Part of his gill system, obviously being above water, doesn't need the gills, but that's the beauty of imagined, fantasy images like this is that we can break the rules of reality biologically, physically, whatever, because we're using our imagination. It's fantasy. So as being fantasy, we can have a fish man breathing out of the water, even though he has gills. Of course, we could say he has two sets of organs, internal lung system to an actual gill system, if we're trying to be scientific. I might put some clothes on him as well too. I like creating this sort of like entity or figures or characters that might even be animal focused, but yet have a semblance of things like culture. Obviously, I'll mix things of European to Asian influence, um, and then kind of making up a hybridized versions of my own. Just a lowly fisherman. Maybe he's taking more of a break. Again, I love cultural elements and things like that really come into play upon costuming. I'll even incorporate things like accessories, jewelries, sort of elements. It kind of gives you a bit more of a grounding of maybe this individual actually lives in some sort of society that does have materials in which they can have the time to make. So I'm gonna get some questions as we're starting to sketch and draw here. We're kind of getting going, and now that I've established the general placement scale of the image, I feel pretty good. Now we can kind of talk about some of the stuff you guys are curious about, and then continue to sketch and draw as we go through the night. And appreciate the comment here, Donna-san, about the Bible helping you out. Um, KS or case studies is mentioning you don't enjoy the process now, and will I enjoy it when I get better? Is this assumption true? What I'm assuming is you're talking about the enjoyment process of drawing or sketching, possibly the process of just general creativity, whatever media that you might end up using, photography, sculpture, even dance or acting or something like that, whatever your media is. And I'll answer it pretty quickly is, do I know the answer if that will get better? I have no idea. For you, right? For other people, again, I can't necessarily comment on whether it's actually going to be better for them, or I guess more enjoyable for them into the future. I have no answer to this. Nobody knows. And so we can't guarantee that, because if I said, yeah, I do know that, hey, you're going to be happy, or enjoy the method of process, and here's what you can do A, B, and C. But I don't know the answer. What I do know is that, is a process of creativity enjoyable? Absolutely. Which is why I do it practically every single day, right? And yes, there are obviously onset pressures and things I have to perform and do to a certain level. And things can become very sort of job-like and stress-oriented. That's life in general, right? And anything that we pursue, even if it's a hobby-based thing. But I also do have experiences that make it very, very enjoyable for me. So for myself, I would say the answer is yes. For you to get to that point, well, that's where then you have to kind of put yourself out there and maybe try some experiences that may uncover this experience for you, which I do hope you discover. But I do think it is possible. Either way, moving forward, Hit Nine's mentioning you stopped drawing around 6 months ago. You've been having a hard time starting back up, and I hope you being here helps initiate the interest or curiosity to sketch again or draw again, whatever you want to do. And that could mean that you might have a sketchbook right now where you can kind of crack it open. If it hasn't been a minute, crack it open and join me. Draw some fish. Draw a fish man. Draw the creature from the Black Lagoon for all I care. Sketch because it can be a moment of opportunity where you actually get to hang out with the rest of us, me included, and you can draw and sketch and ask questions and engage. Yeah, so insane. Yeah, this particular pen I do quite. It's nice. I don't use a bunch of them at times because I don't find them everywhere. The art store I go to here in Pasadena actually happened to carry it today, which is why I picked up like two. I don't really buy a lot of these per year because I'm going to use a combination of fountain pens also, because fountain pens will last, obviously, uh, for a lifetime if I take care of it. And I'll use things like microns here and there. I did it for the Dynamic Bible, but for right now, it's like I picked it up just to, because sometimes it's just opportunity. It's there. I want to try it again, so that's why I got it. A bit of a pot belly. I'm gonna have his leg coming up this direction, leg down over here. He'll be nonchalantly holding the rod. Maybe I'll give him some fin structures. They're not very functional, but more decorative onto him. Here as well, two on the arm. As I said, I'm gonna have her leg coming up this direction here. We'll place some general ideas of anatomy into them. It's humanoid. Here's patella, tibia, inner cap structure. We'll add some more decorative elements of binding or jewelry or clothing elements wrapping his legs, feet. I'm not going to try to overdraw this, so there's some things I'm going to keep it relatively simple, just shape or silhouette. Trying to refrain from overdrawing things these days. Let's get some other questions. Somebody, you were at the workshop recently. Appreciate you hanging out. Thanks for coming to it. We'll be doing some more workshops in the future for Super Ronnie. Our next sort of stop is going to be in New York. So right now we're in August, August to September. I'm going to be just teaching classes. Once we get to October, we'll be kind of being active again. So I'll be out there in New York for Comic Con in October, and we'll have a workshop with myself, with Dong Ho Kim, does a perspective thing, and we'll also have Hyunjin, Kim Hyunjin, who's going to be our obviously who's our manager at Superani, and he'll be doing our watercolor workshop. Who does a really great job of running and managing a sort of a short format class-based exercise thing that we do. So that will be a lot of fun. For those of you that are in the East Coast, if you whether you attend New York Comic Con or not, might be a good opportunity for you to kind of hang out, meet us. Whether you're a little bit more north or a little bit south, wherever you are, come hang out, meet us, sketch, draw with us, learn a little bit, meet other people, especially if you are, in that region of the U.S. Yeah, coming to the West Coast sometimes can be a little bit tricky and hard because of travel and all that sort of stuff. But if you're East Coast based, that will be your next opportunity. You'll be sitting on some sort of dock. I'm gonna put some initially, I was gonna think about like rock forms and stuff like that, but instead, I'm gonna build out some sort of edge of a man-made, or not man-made, but a built-out structure. We'll see what it looks like. The reason why I'm curling his fingers over here is because I want it to be on the edge. So I'm already kind of preemptively thinking that he's going to be on the edge of a structure here built out. A question from Jacob is how would breakdown of the human figure using dynamic sketching and keeping the gesture of the figure? Well, what would be the breakdown in terms of the human figure in dynamic sketching would be similar to what figure drawing already kind of has. Think of it this way: dynamic sketching is, obviously a structural tool, a method of a tool to use to help break down elements of what we see in the world for things like animals and wildlife to vehicles and props and anything around us that we have. And the reason why we don't use figure is because that is resorted to figure drawing, where their goals in figurative drawing is also learning a tool set and how to break down the figure, right? But the reason why we don't do it in dynamic sketching is because there's already so many sort of technical methods and plans and formulas regarding the figure, which we don't really have a lot of in many other sort of things that we draw, especially in the world of illustration. So in the illustration like departments or colleges or whatnot, like stuff like this, you mostly learn how to sketch humans most of the time. So not being able to draw many of the things is the reason whole why dynamic sketching existed at ArtTurn in the first place. So as I was an illustration student, taking dynamic sketching opened my eyes and being able to understand the sort of the approach towards technical breakdown, but not realizing the fact that it's a parallel to what we already do in figure. It's just that in figurative drawing, there tends to be a school of thought or a such a almost religious level of following that goes into a very strict method of where it's resorted to just figurative work, right? I think a lot of figurative anatomy artists wouldn't ever really kind of convey the ideas of how we can draw a figure and how that can be drawn for a car, or how we can use that for drawing a car. I think none of them would ever think that way. Um, but that's what dynamic sketching was supposed to do, was that realize that, hey, if I can build a figure, a human figure, I can probably build out some kind of animal. Probably from there, if I can build out some animal, I can build out an insect. Maybe from there, I can build out a tank. I can build an airplane, a fish. So it made the curiosity of being able to understand or break things down a lot more receivable to you instead of being so dogmatic on like figure only. And so, the question of the breakdown of the figure is no different than what we would do in typical figurative drawing classes because it's the same thing in dynamic sketching essentially. So is gesture line used? Absolutely. Gesture lines used also used in dynamic sketching. Somebody's mentioning, would you rather use a fountain pen, ballpoint brush, or felt tip pen for the rest of my life? Fountain pen for sure. What are my goals for the next 5 years? I mean, it's a big question. I honestly really don't have any sort of like large goals set anymore. Initially I would say what 10 years ago. Some of my goal sets were things like I want to build out an IP, like a story or a property, a licensed thing, an idea of my own. And I would love to see that as being made into something, right? It could be like a series of a TV show, an animation, a movie, something. And so there was always that sort of like pull. Why? Well, I think it's because I was very much influenced by that's what you were supposed to do. I graduated from a school that was all about design, and I was very much into the mentality of world building and making things. So naturally, the inclination was to like again make stuff. So I think from there, seeing my other peers also do this too, working in the industry of things like game and animation and film, and seeing that they also get to like work on these interesting properties, or maybe they even get to make their own, obviously influenced sort of my direction as well too. So a lot of it is one, yes, I'm still interested in that, but I think of course I'm not gonna lie in the fact that I was probably very much conditioned by my environment. So is it truly what I wanted? Now that I think on it, it's like I did. Do I anymore? I kind of say it in a different way. I wouldn't mind. Beforehand, it was very much like I need to, right? I got to do that sort of stuff. And if I didn't, then I wouldn't be legitimate. And so this is also one of the reasons why I did do my comic, Daniel. I did make a graphic novel back in 2017, 18. It took me 2 years to make that, the blacksmith. And I finished it. It was fun. And I want to do another one, but it's like I thought, well, that would be the vehicle that will get me to those next things. Oh, maybe a show, maybe this, maybe that. And it's like, oh, that's great. And again, I needed to in the beginning because it felt like that was what I was supposed to do. Right now, I don't feel the same way. I don't think I feel like anymore this need of like I have to do that stuff anymore. It'd be nice if it did, but I'm no longer in this sort of like sense of I don't know unrealistic push of myself to try to see if I can get to those plateaus or platforms really is really the word I should be using in a certain timeline manner. No, I'm just kind of going based on my own sort of timeline now, and I love making the stuff I do at the moment. Working on some of the educational books like Dynamic Bible or the classes that I teach and the freelance work that I get has been really fun. I'll probably get back into making my own stuff again. And there's a lot of projects that are just hanging about that I want to work on, but people ask all the time, it's like, hey, when's that book coming out? And when's this one coming out? When's this thing gonna be done? It's like I just work on my own timeline. When it's done, it's done. You'll see it when it's done. That's it. You know. So I don't necessarily cater to anybody else's schedule. I mean, granted, the book that I'm making right now, there's a certain timeline I like to be able to get it done, but this book should have probably been done years ago, right? But I'm not gonna sit here, toiling in my own sort of like disappointment or regret of like, oh, like why couldn't I get this finished sooner for other people? It's not supposed to be for people. It's supposed to be for me. People just seem to want to happen to be like, want to be a part of it, and that's great. I'm so happy with the support, but at the same time, I have to make sure that I'm not compromising my own genuine love of wanting to do it, and not turning it into this sense of urgency of trying to rush it through. So that's why I never felt any sort of guilt. When somebody asked me, it's like, it's a show or Comic Con or something like this. Hey, when's the next book coming out? It's like, oh, it's coming out soon. If you really, genuinely enjoy the stuff that I do, you'll wait. You know, um, that's how it goes, basically. But yeah, other than that, no other major goals. I would see a goal, if anything else, in the next 5 years is more about an internal, sort of thing. My own sort of pathway and sort of growth as an artist and how it is in the next set of journeys. Because I'm basically what you would call in the midlife point, right? I am basically halfway through my life. Um, I don't think I've actually had any sort of official midlife crisis. I never felt anything. I would say the last year's sort of health scare situation really kind of just shone light on things, which made me help me kind of get through stuff. Of course, having people around me and whatnot. And I think there was his own forced midlife crisis in a way because I realized, oh shoot, I'm not gonna be just healthy anymore. And even though it wasn't necessarily anything I did, it was purely accidental and just by chance that I got sick. Um, but here I am. So I'm gonna go back to some questions here. Sorry, that was a long-winded answer for a simple. Well, it's not even a simple question, really. I mean, what do you do in the next 5 years? What are some of the goals? It's big for some people. They don't even know. When I put down a line, are you thinking about the object in the mind or imagining imagining it on the page and tracing it? There's no tracing. There's only an idea, and I'm feeling it. There's no thinking, feeling. I feel like his arm could go that way. I feel like there's a depth of perspective that can go this direction. Could it be technical? Of course it could be. But I want to very much feel the image as to like how I want it to be perceived. And that's experience, time. And I might got the feeling wrong. It may not look very good at all. So that's kind of how it goes. Important question from Dan. There's been this drawing there's been this draw directly with pen advice. When it comes to drawing from imagination, that's been proliferating. I think you're on I'm one of the advocates. Do I think it can be toxic for artists? As in, if they draw directly, they'll be doing bad drawings en masse, which isn't really good for the morale of the beginner artist, which can beget art block. So let's read that question again and more precisely as to like what is the intended sort of questioning of the actions that I may be an advocate for, which is drawing directly with pen, as I am doing now, right? So it's really a little bit different based on what. Let me answer it this way: is it toxic for artists to convey the idea of drawing straight with pen as being something that could hurt or harm the mentality and the drawing methods of learning for beginner artists? Yes and no, because obviously it places a pressure that could be slightly unrealistic as to what their capable skills may be, right? Because you're talking about someone who's, let's say for myself, doing something like this has been doing for over 25 years. So is it realistic for me to tell someone who's beginning, hey, regardless of whatever you heard or learned, forget all that, or even if you are going to use it, go straight to pen and draw exactly as it's supposed to be. It's just not realistic. So is that what I'm essentially doing? Well, I mean, it could be assumed that way because of what you watch. Of course, if you've never taken a class with me or never worked with me, I can't argue with that, right? Because it's all the information that you have. So what you will notice then is all the videos that you do is just you drawing straight with pen. And how could someone not be convinced to be like, that's what I got to do also? And this is a very much a big sort of issue at the moment because of social media. Sometimes things like that are not necessarily the trueness of what the artist is doing because they are just putting out an idea or, let's say, a method of what they are normally used to. Because this, what I'm doing right now, is a byproduct of 20 plus years of me doing what I've done training wise. But let's say we go to something like this. You know, the book I'm making right now, let's say we go to an image that we have here, right? Or let's go to even the ones later on from the fish stuff, since we're doing fish. And you notice, you know, these sort of images, of course, shows you, yeah, I'm going straight to pen. And then I'll be doing something like this. And then I'll be doing something like this. And then I'll be doing something, you know, like this. And do each of these images intend the exact same idea as to what we're talking about right now, which is forego, right, any sort of process and go into directly drawing what you either see or imagine. And I certainly hope that's not the case here, because I would like to, it'd be nice to explain that, because some people would assume it because they don't know who I am. You don't know what I do. You never taken a class with me. How can I assume that everybody would know what I do, right? So it's not realistic again. So what I do when it comes to the pen is to create an experience in which you are going to face the commitment to the line and to the image. And you got to be able to embrace that mistake making because the pen, you will mess up. Now, these aren't necessarily just sketch studies because these are pages for a book I am making, but are these done, right, with the intent of showing you a method of a process of how to study something with pen? Absolutely. So would I recommend you use pen straight into it? For sure. But that's for study mentality, not to create illustration. And there's a difference between sketching and drawing to me. What we are doing right now, in my opinion, is drawing something. This is not a study, okay? Because I'm not trying to show you how I study a pose or the fish or the hybridization of animals or humanoid and, you know, perspective or line quality or hatching. None of that. This is just a drawing. I'm showing you what I've already done for the past 20 years. But these pages show you, well, if I want to draw this kind of plant, I want to try to draw maybe some of these sort of, you know, boxes and ribbons and lines, and maybe you can do that with the pen also. And as you commit to the line, maybe your line quality will increase. Maybe you'll also embrace the mistake making and the fact that you are now forced to do it again repeatedly. If you can do it multiple times, you may figure things out as you go, right? You might get better with the understanding. Reinforcing your confidence, reinforcing your visual library, and understanding how to build things, right? So is this straight pen drawing? It is. But the mentality and the intent is very different. So once you understand that awareness of your control of decision making as to what you're even doing in the first place, well, then you have a clear pathway to follow. Is it wrong to just go in there and scribble your way through with pen? Of course not. I'm not saying that this is the best method. I'm saying it's a method that I show that I've done in which you can also inquire or also incorporate on top of the many other ways you can sketch and draw. There's no one way. There's multiple generations of ways it can be shown. And even then, you can then question those rules. You can break those. You can, again, combine them together. You can do it your own way, how you feel. But to say that these are not pen drawings, I'm not doing any pencil underlay with this. But also, if you were to do so, is that wrong? Of course not. You can do pencil underlays if you want to. What I'm saying is, these are now giving you examples and also situations that creates a certain experience in which you can follow based on my advice due to because you either see my work and you say, oh, I like your stuff. I want to learn from you. So here's my advice. Try it or don't, right? So if you don't want to do pencil underlay because I'm saying so, you follow that because I'm trying to intend to create this experience of producing line competence and line economy, but also visual library. Hopefully the outcome will give you that experience, right? But then that's time. I know it's a long-winded answer, but I think that comment from Dan, and also the question, is an important one, a very valid one, because he is correct in the sense that this mentality is proliferating through the community of people, young artists, thinking that, hey, what you and a lot of Superani artists do and a lot of other artists on social media seem to say is forget, understudies, forget lay-ins, and just go straight with pen. That is something I would not suggest because you got to learn the methods of how to construct, to build, to understand the study. But should you use pen for that? Well, based on my class, I recommend it. Many of the classes won't. But I hope that makes sense. And it's just to be able to help sort of clarify the kind of the intent in this thing that I teach. Because again, for some of you may have never taken a class with me. All you have right now is a social media presence, which is not necessarily real. It's just you're just seeing a portion of it, of me, who I am. Some people have met me in person and stuff like that, and maybe you'll see the consistency of who I'm presenting myself as, right? But either way, I can't deny the fact that this is also, like, this is a performance. I'm putting myself out there. I got to act a certain way, talk a certain way, draw a certain way. It's a part of the look, right? But I will also be true and honest with you in the fact that no, this is not what you should be doing right now. You can, but that doesn't mean that you can't try. If somebody said, hey, but I'm not ready for that yet, should I take more classes and maybe I can get to like what you're doing at the moment? Well, sure, but you can also do this while you're doing that. Just try to draw it from with pen out of your mind. And if you fail, it's okay. What does that matter? Do it again. Um, if you don't like it, find something you do like, copy from it, and then now apply it afterwards. There's so many different ways you can approach that. Um, but I do hope, that sort of reply, the answer to this, kind of gives you at least a better sense as to maybe what actually is going on here. Um, in terms of the streams and also what is being placed out there in social media. So again, I would not call myself an advocate of going directly draw with pen. I would be an advocate of directly drawing or sketching with pen instead, right? Because sketching and drawing to me are two different things. So if you were to study this with pen, much better. But if you're trying to illustrate this like I am right now without studying it, not going to do you any favors. Okay? But can you imitate and copy, but also try on your own no matter what? Still, sure, because based on curiosity, oh, I want to see what I can create. You should go for it. Absolutely. Nobody should validate or tell you when you are ready to start just creating for yourself. If you are interested and curious and wanting to just make an image, do it, right? Succeed or fail. Moving on. And thank you for the question there, Dan. It was a really important one. Have I really fully recovered from the vision? I have basically. There's a little bit of residual effect. I feel like my eyes are just a tad bit weak in the muscles, especially when I try to look at more extreme angles, like up, down, left, and right to the extreme edges. I feel like my eyes, they kind of hurt. um, it's not like, sharp pain, but I can just feel, it just feels a little bit uncomfortable. And that's just simply, I think, because of, it's just, I don't know, the nerves. It's like they healed, but at the same time, I think they weakened. Hopefully, it doesn't affect me long term wise as I age. I hope not. But That's the thing about these sort of conditions and stuff that are out there with Miller Fisher specifically. It's like they only sort of described this prognosis back in the 50s. And so, how much actual data is there as to what happens in old age? Probably very minimal. So, I'll probably have to keep doing some sort of exercises, maybe. I don't know. So, you're saying this is a question from Miserable. Might be a stupid question. It's okay. Questions of any type are welcome. You're struggling with making interesting shapes. Your shapes often feel flat. What are the don'ts when trying to make interesting shapes? When you say flat, that kind of requires some inquiry as to what that actually means, right? If we're talking about form, three-dimensional forms, and we can also say two-dimensional shapes. When we say interesting shapes, though, that to me is something a little bit different because we're talking about the visual communication as to what it feels like on a certain surface. Is it two-dimensional or is it perceiving it as three-dimensional, right? So if you want to turn objects and create interesting forms, you manipulate proportions and alter, push, pull things and observe it from life and try to replicate it. If we're trying to design, right, and create interesting shapes or forms that mean something, that say something in communication, you're talking about something a little bit different at that point, because that requires then design thinking as to what do you want to say. So the question of how do I make interesting shapes attaches itself to what you want to be able to communicate based on what you want to express as an idea, as a story, as whatever. So think of it as the basics within human instinct. What makes it frightening? What makes it cute? What makes it elegant? What makes it dominant? Based on the verbal aspect of wordplay, combine that what makes you feel like attaches well to a shape design. Based on an interesting shape that might describe it based on a verbal kind of word as to what you want to mean, hopefully it aligns better to your intent on that side. One of my thoughts on AI being used for art, that's a whole can of worms. We may touch upon it later. We're not going to do that right now. Again, I think it's okay to discuss stuff like this. Normally, I talk about it much more within classrooms. I don't like to use the platform to just rant about what I feel like when it comes to technology, even though I do have feelings on it. Because I don't think it necessarily is the most helpful because what it usually does is it invites and incites argumentative approach from people that just want to argue. So I'd rather talk to people where I get to actually have real conversation, real back and forth with people that are in classes most of the time, because that's where it matters the most in education. People that are learning these things can start to understand the context as to like what is actually going on, where it's applied in the industry, and how I personally feel about it, and what you may want to do on your own. But into the internet, the black hole of me yelling into it based on my opinion, fine, I can understand how that can make a difference as well too. But it's just not my interest. So, but doesn't mean I can't tap on it. So we'll see. Basically, I can say this: I don't like it. AI sucks. All right. Have you seen the new Spider-Man? I'm actually gonna check it out tomorrow. This has been a good movie year. I think as everyone's been mentioning it. Everyone's like, "Oh, this is like the best year for profits and movies." Movies are back again. Everyone's saying that. But I've been going. I've been watching multiple films. What was I watched Odyssey, of course, and I just got back from watch the Avatar Aang movie animation. It's pretty solid. So we'll see Spider-Man tomorrow. A lot of the horror films I didn't get a chance to check out in the theater, but I've been watching them. Obsession, Backrooms. They were good. They were fun. It's not my sort of like type of horror movie that I like the most because I really do enjoy horror, and that sort of stuff was great for what it is, and obviously from the inspirations, and also being a little bit more not low budget, but almost like independent styling. But I'm a huge fan of more like body horror. I like gore stuff for some reason. Like my favorites, are from usually the 80s and 90s. So, things like Hellraiser, The Thing. But I'm more into the classical horror films. Dead Alive, Tom Savini's sort of stuff. It's the prosthetics, it's the, practical makeups that I really enjoy the most. I think a lot of people like the sort of the psychological sort of aspect to it, which I like too. I love world building and story. So when horror films have a lot of like, sort of deeper story mood building to it, I'm really pulled into that. Like The Ritual is a really good one. I like that one a lot. Dennis is asking, would you say the dynamic sketching method would be an important prerequisite if I want to get into the figure drawing? Within my class, yes. And also taking a figure drawing class in general, a basic one, I would recommend. Would I agree that better thinking will result in better drawing? No, I don't think so. Because that's not the only way to draw, not the only way to sketch. It could be one outcome that might give you some result that's appealing or satisfactory to the intent of what you're going for. But when we say better or worse, it's always attached to what it is you're trying to do, right? So if I create this image, is it the best thing I ever did? Uh, No, it's not. But it doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. It doesn't mean it's not good. It's just a piece that is in context to what is applied to the book that I'm making. Um, would I ever have a mentality of trying to create the best drawing of my own ever? No, because I don't think that way. For me, it's just an act of doing it, and if it happens to just be really good, based on my comparisons or things that remember having done, great. But it's not the thing that's gonna stop me and be like, oh man, look at this piece, and I hold it close to my chest. I don't really have that. Um, so I don't think necessarily better thinking is, but I think being able to have, an understanding as to your ultimate, the goal behind the piece is important because you're trying to accomplish something. Um, for myself, when it comes to my own history of things, it's always been based on industry approach, which is not about satisfying your sort of needs of liking the piece you created. You're trying to satisfy someone else's needs, the art director, the company, right? You're trying to read their mind as to what they want for the project. So that's usually the sort of the driving factor of was it good or not, maybe at the time. Because if they approved it, it's like, oh, great, it was a good piece and it matched for the job project and I did my job, right? Um, but anyways, for myself now, it's like that kind of mentality of trying to find a better drawing is not really there anymore. But I think, yeah, better thinking still gives you a good result. But it's not ever going to guarantee you're a better drawing. It is important based on the necessary part of the job, like what it is you're working on. Sometimes you just go in there and play, scribble, like you let loose and see what happens. And maybe it's good or bad. Maybe it's just more based on a feeling. Over the years, I'm trying to release the control because everything in my life has always been about the tightness of grip of trying to find a process, a method, a mentality, an intent. And even though I talk so much about intent, it's important for certain circumstances. It's not always the thing you need to have, though. Josh, thank you for the donation, by the way. Really appreciate that. $10. That's great. And again, I'm on here to hang out with you guys, and I do this mainly because I'm still doing it no matter what, with drawing for these projects. But to be able to get on, and have you guys jump in and talk to me and ask questions, and also people that can support this channel is always something I very much appreciate because I am giving as much time and energy as I can to you guys because it's my experience, it's what I've done, and I like to be able to use it. Somebody's asking, is taking a gap year after high school that important? That important if I wanted to go to an art degree in concept art, or should I go for an illustration degree then switch to concept art? I would take that gap year. I think taking a year off after high school is actually quite good. Going to like a local community college, some sort of local small art schools, maybe even some general education to get that out of the way for credits, and just being able to mature a little bit, live, get out there, do stuff. um, Understandably, you'll still be in school, but the pressures of teenage years and coming out of high school, and I understand in your position, to you, it's like you won't see it from my perspective because you're living it. So when somebody tells you, it's like, yeah, take a year off and relax and live, you don't feel that way because I gotta get moving. It's serious. It's like I can't waste time. Maybe somebody else is telling you that, like family and stuff like this. So I get it. Um, but based on what I had done personally, after my high school, I did go to a 2-year college. It was like a small associate's degree to get graphic design. It wasn't even within the field I wanted to do. It was more just kind of general art education. And then I went to art center afterwards. I would say going into some sort of general ed, community college, smaller art school is going to be better because not only do we have a chance to grow and mature as an individual and person, but also take advantage of a more serious sort of educational endeavor that you may pursue later on because you'll be in the right frame of mind. So I'm going to scroll down a little bit, skip some of the questions. Appreciate everyone's comments and questions, but again, I have to get to the more present ones. So if you want to ask again your question, if I missed it, please ask again. So I'm just kind of scrolling a little bit. So Arnabroid's asking, you're a design aspirant and want to get into top design colleges. Sketching is not that good. You're trying to follow my dynamic sketching course. Any tips for you? I mean, based on your circumstance, financially, location-wise, that sort of stuff, you may not be able to access everything you want as a resource, obviously, right? Not everybody can. So, where you are right now, here, live with me, I mean, it's free. So you should be, taking this opportunity to talk to other people in here, ask questions in general, not even just to me. It's like ask people, hey, what kind of classes have you guys taken, or what are you guys doing? To sort of ask tips and advice in terms of trajectory. Where should I go, or what should I learn? What kind of classes I go for? What kind of books you guys like? So it's not this chat is not only just for being able to talk about and asking for advice directly to me as a presenter, which I'm sure everyone's obviously somewhat interested in, but being able to talk amongst yourself, that's what you guys should be doing. This is a supposed to be a safe space. Okay, if anybody's being abusive, please let me know. I'll kick them out. Um, Banned them. No problem with. I have no issues banning. No problems with that. And my history to that is because I was a college instructor at Art Center and I had no problems failing people. Okay, if you don't show up to class, if you don't do your homework, I will fail you. And so, if people are acting in a way that's not appropriate, that's actually helpful and encouraging in this space, I have no problems in getting them down here. Um, no warnings too. I wasn't very much a super strict instructor, but I was very forward. I would tell them straight up, so like what's going on and what you're doing. But, it's not like I was crushing people or ripping their artwork apart or telling that they don't belong or something like that. No, that's not the way you should be teaching, in my opinion. Of course, that's the history of our education, of course, right? And I got a lot of the students that would always ask me, it's like, can you be really harsh with my stuff and be super critical and like tear it apart, tell me everything that's wrong? It's like, it's just not who I am. Sorry. So, but I can be forward with you, and I don't necessarily give any leeway. But I also understand if there are things that you are going through, things that you're actually doing, I will accommodate, for your sort of experience or maybe what you're going through. That's in class, right? There's tips again, like I said, was to just sketch with us right now. Crab is asking, you don't want to be a downer, but will there ever be enough job opportunities for all artists with high skill levels? And that's not a downer question, in my opinion, because you have to look at it like this. Well, let me respond to that by saying I don't also want to be a downer in response to that, Crab. So if it ends up sounding that way, I do apologize. I don't mean to, but for me, the response to the question is it helps me, not helps, but it puts me in a reflection as to my own prior experiences. You have to look at it like this you're asking into the future, will there ever be enough job opportunities for artists, right? Even with highest skill level, regardless of skill, because what that implies is that before whatever's happening now, oh, there were so many great opportunities for artists. And is that true? I don't think so. uh, I had a hell of a time getting a job after college in 2004. Okay. I didn't get my first job out of school. It took me over half a year to find even my first small freelance gig. And it was for some crappy, small little project I had to work on. And then built it up over a number of years to get more opportunities of a full time job. So out of school, I was seeing people being hired. I was not being hired. Was I the best in my college and in my graduating class? Absolutely not. I was mid tier level, in my opinion. But the thing is, it's like I had drive, I had hunger, but a lot of it was also luck and just stupid timing. um, let's build a bit more of this out. I'm going to put some sort of structure here. So it wasn't easier back then. And I understand it's much more visual now. It's visible. You are seeing people being let go. You are seeing companies kind of letting, layoffs are happening. But again, here's the thing. That's also what we experienced 15, 20 plus years ago. I've gone through a total of 3 wipeouts of layoffs in companies. The longest I've ever stayed at the game studio was about 2.5 years. And I've stayed at game studios where it's like a 10-month period. They promised me a contract of 2 years. 10 months in, they lay everybody off. Oh, we don't have any money. Oh, the budget was bad. It's like, oh, the parent company decided to cancel us. I've experienced all of those decades ago. So the job opportunities now are, I would say, not the same. I mean, it's different, of course, as well too. But in a lot of ways, almost there is more actually, because the amount of content being generated today, so from the streaming content to the mobile content to the games that we make, compared to when I was leaving college, I would say there's more now than it was back then. But it doesn't mean it's easier now either. It's just that right now we have much more competition, even though there's so much competition at that time as well. There was a lot of competition I was going against. And again, I wasn't the best. So I had to somehow compete. I had to keep building work and pushing my stuff and finding the right connection, maybe get my chance and opportunity. And if I started over, I mean, I'd be just doing the same thing, right? Finding the network, building my portfolio, trying to make a connection, go online social media, build a better website, keep producing more work. I mean, the experience of what I did back then to what it be now wouldn't be that much different, honestly. It's just that if I did know what I did back then, or no, I'm sorry, let me put it this way. If I do know what I know now and I started over, I mean, I would have a much easier time because I had that experience. But if I started over not knowing anything, it'd be the same kind of drudgery and difficulty as it was back then that it is now. So, but what that means is that's just life. It doesn't come easy. It never was supposed to be. And the ones that end up just getting the opportunity seems so easy for them. Again, that's just circumstance of life again. You can't choose who's going to have all those opportunities and not. And we could say all about things like social status and popularity or financial sort of security, that sort of thing. That gives them more of an opportunity and chance. Like maybe, but that's always been human society, right? But what that also means is, to kind of like bring it back up again, is I did make it. Okay, and some of you can disagree with me. It's like, oh, I mean, you can say that you were the mid tier or not that great, but now you're such and such, whatever that may mean. And I can say that I am happy and fairly sort of successful in what I do because I'm able to live off of it. That's what will equal to success. I'm not the most popular. I'm not the most skilled. I don't have the greatest, things out there. But you know, I've been able to make do with it, make something of it. And for a lot of you, you're hearing that it's like, oh, I wish I even had something like that, But that also means that you probably could, because I come from that sort of background where again I was always trying to compete with people that I saw that were much greater than me, and I still do. I'm still competing against that sort of same type of competition. I'm jumping into pools of bigger sharks, and I have to find a way to claim that keep. I gotta push. So what this really, again shows you also is just skill is not going to be my thing. I mean, there are still right now people that are way more skilled, but I do have that drive. Iron Lung, I'm not sure. I'm not super familiar with that artist. You might be talking about Dirty Iron. And Gilly, when it comes to regaining your concentration and attention span, go on your own time. based on your own sort of like schedule. Don't rush it. Okay. I understand that you might feel this pressure to be like, go, I got to get that concentration down, get it back again, fight against this sort of like natural tendency of losing maybe your attention or something like this. It may be just who you are and how you work. And that's okay. Where can you buy the number two dynamic Bible? It's not out yet. Hopefully early next year. Starting art at an older age, like 25, 25 is not too old. Trust me. I've had students who started drawing much older than you, double the age, started drawing again, right? What are some great non-educational reference books, in my opinion? I mean, there's so many. That's purely based on artists that I just follow and like, you know? That's kind of where I would turn to. It's just the things that I've enjoyed from artists that I've observed and grew up with. And I just picked up a book at Comic Con. It was the Jeff Darrow artist. If you guys know who Jeff Darrow is, if you don't, you should look him up. Jeff Darrow. He was a comic artist, prolific in the 90s and still, I think, today with Shaolin Cowboy. Was an awesome concept artist working on the Matrix in the 90s as well, too. But his stuff is beautiful. Let's have him catching a something. I don't know yet. I'm going to put something over here, like what he caught. I'm going to have this little dock end back here. So in terms of other like non-educational reference books, I didn't fully answer that, but I don't have any on me on hand right now, unfortunately, so I can't show you on recommendation off the top of my head. I always love collecting airplane books, weapon books, military study, photographs, right? The kind of stuff I picked up. I used to just walk around, like Barnes and Noble back in the day, Borders, and go to their discount aisle, and they would, have these massive discounts on these great reference art books, not art books, but picture books, and a lot of them will be on like military history or costuming or something like that. I always loved picking those up because they'd be like 20 bucks here, 15 bucks there, and they're these really massive books. Um, but yeah, just scouring libraries, going to bookstores, spending time there. If you haven't gone to the bookstore recently, it's maybe one of the reasons why you won't find anything. Go out more. Go check out the libraries again. Just don't go online only. Use the other resources out there. When is my next class? It's going to be mid to late October. So we're in session right now. We're in week 3 currently. And we'll finish around the end of August, I would say. And registration will begin around early October. I was going to put something down here, and I want it to be humorous. It can be dark. Maybe some. I was thinking literally of a person, of a human being, like a smaller human, like being pulled up by this hook or something like that, or maybe like hanging onto it. But then I thought about maybe some kind of other animal instead, because I don't know, the human figure would be kind of funny, but it'd be so small. I don't know, it'd be that visually interesting. I thought about just putting like a crustacean on there, like a little crab. It'd be kind of fun. Do I often link drawings to memories? All the time. Any advice on keeping figures, objects consistent across all angles? Break down the basic of the forms, as always. It's a common answer. I apologize. It's the one that most people will say again. But any object that we draw, the human hand, the pen, or something like this, if you can break down the primitives, whatever angle you're drawing from, you're trying to maintain good proportion, basically. How do I balance 2D and 3D thinking? I've spent over a year on 3D forms, and now I'm seeing other artists stressing the importance of 2D shape design. I mean, they go hand in hand. You can't really separate them. To get to 3D, you start with 2D always. Always, right? If I want to draw a cube, I draw one side of a plane, and I build more planes to get the cube. So any form that you're thinking of begins with a 2D shape. Now you can build interesting 2D shapes and then convert it to the form. Again, you start to stress that. So no matter what, you're already starting and should be starting always with a 2D design, whether it's more primitive or something a bit more visually complex, and then moving it into three-dimensional ideas, whether volumetrically through light and shadow or through things like wireframe and planes. Ghibli's mentioning that you're both ADHD and dyslexic, so drawing does feel daunting, which I understand. My mentor Norm was dyslexic, but he was just fine. It was difficult for him to kind of keep things organized, especially like handwriting. He like handwrites stuff really wrong. And Zane's mentioning that you've been struggling. Your head goes empty when you put the blank page in front of you. You've been using schedules as a way to resist it. Have I had this feeling before? No, I have not. So I can't necessarily fully understand or sympathize with that. Not to say there's anything really wrong with you, because there's probably countless other people that feel that same way. Does that mean I'm somehow better? No. It just means that maybe I am doing something that helps me avoid that sort of mentality. And what is it? I think it was just purely from the history of being able to have good people around me that are also creating, so I can work off of them. Having the experiences in classes and schools that always gave me a method of approach, which you could pick up on things like online, books, and stuff like this. Um, I would say not feeling guilty. Creating the things I just love to create was a big part of it. Instead of feeling pressured and forced, like this blank piece of paper has to be something, right? Whether for some sort of educational value or some sort of monetary value or possibly some sort of qualitative value. None of that stuff was in front of me. It was purely of, oh, I just want to draw the dinosaur. What kind of dinosaur do I want to draw? I'll draw a raptor. I'll draw a T-Rex. I was like, I don't know how to draw that one. Let's look at it. Photograph. Let's look at the bone structure. Oh, now we'll break it down. Now we'll try that, right? There's an endless amount of things I want to create and draw. The hard part for me is just choosing. What do I just draw today, right? Because I want to draw a lot of stuff. Iron Lung was a video game. Oh, I didn't know that one. Fishing up another fish who's fishing. That's an interesting Rempton. But I'm not going to make him humanoid. Let's do it like this. I need to make him a bit bigger because if he's too small, it won't help. It's got to communicate. So what we're going to do, we're going to put a fish down here, and the hook is going to go through the back, basically. So we'll put him here. His dorsal fin is going to be there. But he will have some humanoid elements, meaning instead of fins, he'll have some appendages that he's holding another fishing rod, right? But he's going to be more fish-like, less human. So here, place in the gills. He's going to be kind of shocked. And we'll place in kind of like a fin-like structure, but he's going to be holding. It's the Disneyfication, where they'll take wings and fins and turn them into like fingers. And he'll also have a rod. I don't know if it's going to work, but it's fine. And the hook will be coming out of his back here. Now give him little fin feet. We're gonna have some of the water kind of toil up, breaching. The beauty again of imagination drawing is that you can just make it whatever you want it to be. Don't need to be held by logic, don't need to be held by anything based on realism, even if it is kind of ludicrous. Honestly, actually, the ludicrous, the better. Lottie Code's asking, is there a correlation between drawing speed and precision with line? Not drawing precision, but what I would say is drawing, or I'm sorry, line sharpness. Precision, I would say, is the specifics of points to the specific areas of where it needs to be, right? Where the sharpness of the line is the visual sort of like expression of it. Basically, the more tight, the more control you try to go with line, it tends to be a bit shaky, a bit flat. When you go a little bit quicker of speed, the line tends to be a bit more sharp. Creates very different sort of like expressions. Um, and both are fine based on like what it is you want to do. But I would say based on speed though, that would be the sort of the outcome as to what would happen. Colosaurus is asking for improving. Would you recommend drawing for a specific goal, like landing a job, or just drawing from imagination inspiration? I mean, that's very two different things. If you were a student, I wouldn't be necessarily creating or drawing things for the job right now to land a job, especially if you're starting your education. That's not your goal. The job is not the goal yet. The job can be defined once you actually get a bit more experience in education. In a four-year college, you don't really just choose what based on my recommendation in terms of like a hard specific choice of a career in a portfolio until like your third year is what I usually say. So your first 2 years are all about basically being able to explore all the possibilities what's out there in a job based on media. I can play with pen, I can play with paint, I can play with digital, I can play with all these things, but also the different possibilities how it's applied. I can make characters, I can make illustrations, I can do backgrounds, I can do whatever. You experience all those things, and the more you expose yourself to it, you get exposed to things you never thought about before or have done before, and it may open up the door as to wanting to do something where you assumed you want to do something else. And then the job specification can become more real after that. So in the beginning, it's to be able to just play around. Favorite games? Again, a lot of them. There's a lot of games out there I enjoyed playing. The one I probably could always turn to, and I actually will do this maybe once a year. I always go back to this old game, series of games. What I really enjoyed were click adventure games. Some of you are probably not old enough to play some of these games. Some of you are older. Um, Obviously, we're kind of on the same generation, I guess. LucasArts games, things like Monkey Island, The Dig, Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, or Sim and Max, and all those classic click point adventure. Those ones I always want to come back to and play again over and over. Even though I know the story and I've played them multiple times, many times, I always like re-experiencing them again, going through all the puzzles and seeing the visuals of it. There have been a resurgence of some point-click adventures here and there over the years, um, but it just doesn't capture the same kind of energy or magic as it was in the 90s. This is a 9 by 12 paper, 9 inch by 12 inches. Paper grain that type is honestly, I prefer even like watercolor papers, but this is smoother. I don't like super grainy, like heavy, like craft paper. It's too rough. Intermission to classes will begin October, mid-October. This is a felt tip brush pen, yes, made by Zebra. And I didn't really pick up a lot of stuff during Comic Con this year. I was chained to the table because I was doing so much signing and so many commissions. I was drawing a lot of live stuff, so I didn't really have a chance to get a lot of stuff or even walk around, honestly. Um, After this portion, I'm going to go back and hit some of these areas of darks a little bit, concentrate on the fish over here as well, too. Place some more stuff around, maybe like some lily pads, some plants, maybe put some cat ears. Or what are those plants called again? Not cat ears. Yeah, this is a. It's the one that look like little hot dogs on a stick. But no, I didn't really buy anything because I just didn't get a chance to. But what I did buy were a lot of Jeff Darrow stuff because he was sitting next to us at the table in the booth. I hadn't seen Jeff in a couple of years. I've met him a handful of times, purely as just a fan, so I would like buy his work. And so seeing him again this year, we actually talked a bit more, was really great. So getting a chance to like talk to my own quote unquote heroes within art, Jeff is one of them. So I bought like three originals of his and one of his books. But that was the only thing I got this year. And that's really the only thing I usually get nowadays is original art. Books I rarely buy. Prints I never buy. They're given to me sometimes. Toys I'll still get, but I'm actually trying to like slow it down with that sort of stuff. So this year also I've only bought maybe a handful of things. Sneakers I've stopped buying a lot of. A lot of collectible stuff. I'm trying to take it a little bit easier. So the question or comment was Joss was mentioning you already have the 2D shape gestures ideas figured out in your head and are placing the forms over them. Well, you can preemptively study them, right? The shapes and the forms and thumbnail, and then bring it over to another iteration from there. Something like this. Again, I didn't do any sort of pre thumbnail or something like that. In terms of the underlay, there's some notes on the side as to like what I wanted for this page for the book. So I knew I was going to draw a fish dude fishing, right? But this drawing is of its own, but it did start with 2D shapes and I'm conveying form with things like wireframe type of information, but also information in context of depth, a little bit of perspective in there. But I would say every sketch study, starts with a 2D shape, and you can discover it on the page. A lot of it is also then directed by the observation. What you're looking at, you're trying to carry over as an interpretation of shape and form onto whatever page you're working on. Appreciate that, Willa Willa, for the comment. Omar's mentioning after grinding solo since 2009 and learning to draw with both hands after partial paralysis. So I'm glad you got to get through that. You're hitting a wall at 34. So did it ever feel like giving up on the solo journey? No, I have not. And again, I'm not saying that to mean in any way that you are incapable somehow, or somehow I am more capable. But that's just not the case. Life circumstance, life sometimes just throws things at your way that may benefit you, encourage you, or set you on a path that continues to one step beyond to the next one in a solo journey. We can say solo, but it's not really solo, right? For me, it's like there's dozens of people behind me encouraging, pushing. So I always tell my friends and students all the time is that I was set up not to fail. The only reason I would have failed is because I gave up myself, but not because someone else told me that I wasn't good enough or that I wasn't gonna be capable or I wasn't gonna be able to meet my goals. Everyone was always endlessly mentioning that hey, whatever you're gonna pursue, you're gonna be fine. But that doesn't mean that I didn't have self-doubt. It doesn't mean that I didn't necessarily question my own endeavors and directions or compare. but I never wanted to stop. But I think hitting walls and having a period of sort of an adjustment, almost like even a re-identification as to like who you are and what you want to do, is kind of normal. It may take some time. There's no sense of how long it'll take, but as long as you just kind of stick with it, be patient for yourself. Don't push too hard just yet. Let it kind of naturally go as it will. I think you'll be fine. And so just take my comment as that is just moral support. I don't know how you'll do it, but I'm sure you'll figure it out. When drawing figures, do I construct them out of different forms based on each pose specifically, or do you think of pre-established mannequins that you have practiced? It's both, because you can have a diversity of various forms that you may have used as practice and interchange them based on different poses in the opportunity that are there. Would I generate a new form for that specific pose of a figure? Most times no, mainly because again I will use what I know. And so this is why the mileage and the training of practice, where you do countless and endless amounts of studies, are helpful, because you're able to understand what and what kind of form you want to use in that instance and make that decision quickly and stick with it, because you can also predict what's going to happen. That side of prediction is a part of this, because even if I went with this as an underlay study, with a penciling on underneath and an inking on top, or straight ink, or to shaping and forming using markers, or whatever the case is, ways and methods of trying to figure out what this image is going to be, it doesn't guarantee that I exactly know the outcome. So there's always a side of slight prediction that I think if I go with this approach for this particular piece, for using these materials, that's the outcome in which I'm going to be the most satisfied by, or the thing I need to be doing to finish this piece. And that's purely built off of experience, which is where you're going to fail a lot. You try things, doesn't work out. Oh, okay, I'm going to use this material instead, or that angle didn't work, or that shot wasn't appropriate. Whatever the case is. And I'm still learning, because I'm not going to be the best at every single genre or every single sort of subject matter. I like more fantasy, sci-fi, creature-esque stuff. If I'm trying to do cute, I can do it within my own way. I would say a lot of people who already do that sort of stuff wouldn't agree it's like, what they would want to do. I have my own systems, but again, within a general mass, it may not necessarily fit that standard. But that's where I have to learn. If I'm going to maybe be hired for a job or something like that, if I'm working on some sort of animated show for kids, I'm not going to be the best at that. But I think I would have the openness to learn, but I can observe. I observe what others do, and I'm able to pick it apart. But it still requires a lot of sort of like pointing from someone else. It could be an art director, it could be from a client saying we need this or we want that sort of outcome. So it may give me a direction, but it require me multiple studies to even get a sense of like, what I want. Who do I think are the most who do I think are the top three most skilled artists in history? I mean, it's almost on tier of like asking my favorite movies, because I have a long, long list of film, and I have a very long, long list of artists that I've observed and I've analyzed and studied, or at least even just seen from the decades of doing this. But if I was forced to answer that, my mind goes to these three. This is purely personal preference. It doesn't mean it's true to the community of artists out there, but for my own personal preferences of what I like, number one would be Heinrich Klei. I can look at his stuff endlessly, and I would never get bored of it, and I still can't understand it. Meaning, like, to be able to apply directly into my own work, it's still such a distance for me. Heinrich Klei, Kley, is one of them. Second is within that sort of similar sort of vein of image making. Well, not very similar, but they have that sort of like playfulness. And it's Mobius. Jean Girard, I think, is within our last couple generations probably one of the most amazing um, creatives and individuals who was just able to just figure things out so effortlessly. And he was able to apply himself to so many various industries also. Film, illustration, his design sense, but also his storytelling. As weird as it can be, it was always so prolific. And I'm trying to think of a third one I want to bring up. This is where it gets a little bit like conflicting, a lot of clashing. It's like, oh, this person, that person. I mean, you would think it wouldn't be naturally someone like Jung-gi, right? Kim Jung-gi. And he's, of course, in that sort of like same conflict of my decision making. It's like, who do I choose in that case? Um, but as I said, it's kind of a personal preference thing because Junkie to me is more on that side of like I knew him as a person. I've observed him as an artist as well too. But the thing that really captured me about him was who he was as a person, as amazing as he was on the page. But it's those other parts that really stood out to me, and something that I strive for, not to draw like him. I'm not interested in that. But he had other things about him that I'm much more sort of like perplexed by, but also interested in as a human being. So him, that's on that side. So it's not as an artist level to me, in terms of Kim Jong-gi. Um, but if it was again another artist, if I can pinpoint out, this one might be a little bit out of left field for some of you who know me and follow me. But I would actually say, um, if I can again look at his work endlessly as an artist, it'd be John Singer Sargent. I like Sargent's work a lot. We used to study his work constantly in school. So I've done master copies of his stuff. I've looked at his originals at museums and galleries. I think the guy paints in a manner that is so, again, effortless. But he makes really compelling images to me. As to like, third, fourth place, I'm sorry, fourth place, fifth place, someone like Bernie Wrightson and also BWS. Maybe with someone like Katsuya Terada. Again, I can name endless. Kayla, appreciate the donation again. Dynamic watercolor class when? So we actually do a lot of watercolor stuff in our advanced sketching, and I've introduced a lot more of it into our wildlife class. So the wildlife class actually would be a good one if you have any interest in watercoloring because we tend to use it a bit more there. I don't have necessarily a specific watercolor class purely, um, not because I'm not interested, but it's just difficult to create all these various classes and to teach them in a manner where it's consistently always there for people to take. Because some of the classes have to rotate because I only have so much time in the week. Um, but I will never say no. Watercolor class could be interesting. I'm going to be honest also too, where it's not necessarily on the top of my list, priority wise, but I will definitely keep it in mind. And yes, I do also draw landscapes in ink, and also exteriors and architecture and buildings when I travel on observation drawing. In the advanced class, we do touch upon landscaping, architectural structures as well too. As you'll kind of take note, I mean, it's not a blur of movement right now. I do tend to draw, you might disagree with this, of course, but I myself feel like I'm consciously and forcibly trying to do this. I am trying to draw a lot slower these days. So on the stream, as you notice, I'm kind of working in these areas much more sort of in minuteness in terms of speed. Because I could move with that sense of urgency, but I'm trying to really refrain myself from doing that. So if you're picking up on that a little bit, or if you notice like, man, you don't seem to be moving as fast maybe as you used to, but it's a conscious decision and an effort. In terms of shading, keep it very simple. One direction of light, right? Shadow side, light side. Fill with the shadow side dark with a graphic shape. Here, this is the shadow side. Due to his head casting a shadow. Let me just fill it in. And then these folds of wrinkles of clothing, there could be little pockets of shadow shapes underneath where light doesn't really catch it. So single light direction, keeping it simple. This is where you would practice on primitive form, spheres, cubes, pyramids, cylinders, and look at light on them and see which direction and which side the shadow could be on, and just draw from observation, study it multiple times, build that language. But the thing is, this lighting is not based on reality. It's inspired by it, but I'm also designing it in the way where I want to convey the image that I think would be the most appropriate. So if I want to break the rules of the world, even in the lighting, I will do so. Fountain pen ink recommendations is the one I always tell people. It's the platinum carbon ink. It's the best one. Elmore is asking, is 34 too late? No, it's not. And you have zero resources to support at 18 and taught myself from scratch. And that's great. You've been able to potentially build a certain amount of discipline. There are certain inherent sort of potential issues that can rise up from that. There's always a plus and minus, right? Even if you come from, let's say, a formatted, a what's the way to put it, a structured environment of education, that also creates up and downs, pluses and minuses, positive and negatives. Whereas if you're self-taught, same sort of thing. There's strength that you will have compared to someone who went to, let's say, like a college, and they will have strengths that they will have where you won't because you're independent learned. The idea is, as you continue to grow, being able to diversify your learning, because that shouldn't stop when you finish school or you're independent learning, right? You keep learning stuff. And so you fill in those gaps. When you mature, you begin to realize what those gaps are. When you're younger, you just kind of take on what you can. You just eat up all the resource, whatever's available to you because you're hungry. But as you become a little bit older, you kind of know what you do, you're set in your ways, and you might also all of a sudden realize, like, oh shoot, I don't know this, or I don't know that, or I feel this way now. You now have to fill in those little holes. And to fill them, you got to do what you can based on either independently, or you might go back to a class. You might find a book that might open it, or might find the right people. Something that will help fill that hole in. And then maybe it doesn't. You pursue it, you look for it, doesn't ever happen. And will that stop you? I would hope not. Even if that hole does not get filled. Even if you feel like you're not as good as you should be in that specific area. There's many of those things within my own skill set I feel like I have holes in. Any tips for intuitive perspective? Well, I mean, learn your perspective as best you can fundamentally. Being able to, again, break the rules once you understand the rules. In perspective, you're not really breaking them either. You're more bending them, right? But the intuitive perspective side is more as optical and being able to feel it. You understand the basic premise. Well, there's a horizon line, and there could be some vanishing points, and where things are being overlapped in scale change and convergence of things. And based on that basic premise of what's going on, I'm going to be able to maybe measure, right, certain equal distances or scale changes or angles and turns based on optical control. Where optically, I'm looking at it either observationally or on the page, I'm just thumbnailing stuff out, and it just feels good. And the only way to kind of make that understanding is one, to practice it more on a fundamental level, but then also just draw as much as you can, playing with that concept and failing as many times as you can also, and compare and contrast. Which one seems to be work better? And ones that you start to kind of fall into, because that's now spontaneity. The more that you do, there's a higher percentage of chance where you come across an experience or a moment of a piece that says, hey, that's it. And what that moment is like the light bulb going off. Aha, I found it. Based on your activity and your chance, not because somebody showed you, not because somebody said, hey, do this homework, and all of a sudden you got it. It actually doesn't really work that way. Homework, or I guess education and classes, only gives you an opportunity to create an environment of a method of approach mentality wise, and you then have to do the work to see how you react to it. Does it work or not? Based on many more times that I do it, oh, it seems to kind of click. I'm not really feeling that one. And you take more classes over the many years. And the more you then do it, at some point, the road of path that you're on, you cross a point in which your activity hits a marker, which is a produced piece, and you're able to recognize there. That's it. You might not be able to get it consistently, but you feel it. You can put that one aside. Oh, that one I need to be able to now produce again. And so you do it again multiple times. And you'll fail it because you won't be able to reproduce it. And then at some point, you do it enough times, you kind of get it multiple as iterations. Like, oh, I got it a couple times now, right? And it builds from there. Such a slow climb. But just being able to recognize those successes and acknowledge all the failures and be okay with them is a part of the learning. And it's one that's really hard because then most people will give up because it doesn't happen fast enough for some people. So what you want then is a fast return, the satisfaction of being able to have a quick result. And so it's not for you then at that point because this requires then that sort of not patience. I don't think it's patience because I wasn't very patient. What it takes is the dog hunger. You want it so bad. You're so interested in it. You're so curious by it. There's nothing else you can imagine knowing that it just won't let go. And that's the thing that takes you over that top. And I would say that can be sort of inspired. You can sort of refine it. You can even spark it. But it's very much an internal battle. It's something of your own thing that you have to kind of find. And no instructor, no school can give it to you. They can initiate it. They can maybe like spark it. But it has to be innate. Now, if you're thinking like, well, what if I don't have that? Well, you don't know. Nobody does. This is why you try. Did Jungi ever make mistakes in his drawings? Probably a lot. Did you ever know? Probably not. I didn't. Josh is mentioning something about South Korea and some of their art education culture. This is producing such elite draftsmen, from Dongho to Stonehouse and stuff like that. They seem to produce some of the most skilled current artists. I mean, I know that it can kind of be the perception, or I guess even the sense of how it appears. But I'm gonna kind of disagree with you there, because I think there are some amazing artists from all around the world, honestly. And I've met them, I've seen them, you know. It might be based on preference of style or kind of look, subject matter, method maybe. But I mean, some artists I've met in, Eastern Europe. I mean, there's powerhouses like in Poland. I've met great artists in Paris, amazing draftsman, amazing comic artist. Juano Guarnido, who makes Black Sad, hung out with him, had a beer, and we're drawing. I think he's an amazing draftsman. Juano, is killer, his stuff. I mean, he's on my list as well, too. Black Sad, the graphic novel. If you've never seen that one, you got to check that one out. But I think there are people out there that are some of the most incredible draftsmen that are definitely not even Asian. But I also acknowledge the fact that, yes, there are also many Asian people, but this is a global thing. Um, and what's happening is that everyone's kind of feeding into the energy, you know? You have to kind of see it like this. The South Korean artists are seeing the same thing you are. Not to saying that they're seeing only Korean artists being like the highest skilled. They're seeing other countries, other people that are higher skilled, and it's driving them to push. So if you're seeing these South Korean artists who are amazing, hopefully what that's doing is not only inspiring you but driving you to be like, I'm gonna reach that next tier myself, right? And that could be the next generation. It could be then another wave of artists. That could be some other country. It could be from like South Africa. Or it could be from, Brazil. It could be from Canada. I don't know. It doesn't matter then where it comes from. It's the fact that we're all unified in this sort of intent of trying to drive this creative endeavor. I don't even really see myself, within that grouping because yes, I am, ethnically Korean, but I was born here in the West and I grew up as an American and I've only been exposed to this side of the world. Um, Even when I was younger, it's like I didn't really grow up with a lot of Asians. This is in the 80s and 90s. So I was born in Colorado and grew up in Ohio. I was surrounded by, white kids, black kids, and Mexican kids. Never really a lot of Asian. Not until I went to college, really. So, Tunes is asking, do you feel like developing a significant online following is necessary to have a success as an artist in the current day? Yes and no. I think social media is a bit mandatory these days if you're trying to get into, let's say, industry level stuff, because it does act as a bit like your portfolio. It does show some of most your current work, your sort of like activities, interests, how you just work day to day. And so some studios like to see it. They even ask for like your handles and stuff like that. But to define that as a successful artist, no, I don't think you need to have a giant following for that. Here's another way to put it. Would it help? If we could somehow automatically just switch, press a button and be like, hey, you now have 2 million followers, would it help? I mean, how, I'm not going to lie to you, how would it not, right? There's going to be obviously a lot of traction, a lot of interest. You can build a customer base, you build a product, you can really promote it. You have a lot of people in front of you. But to be a successful artist, we have to define that. Are you saying monetarily? Well, that's a little bit different, right? But to have people respond to your work in a positive way, I think that's successful. People that also, want to follow you because they like the stuff that you do. I don't care if you have 100 followers. To me, that's successful because everybody starts with zero. Unless you're buying them. That's a different thing too. What's the best advice for artists to improve their art? Not for beginners, but professionals? Make stuff. Make things. Books, stickers, whatever you want to make. Based on your ideas, based on, I don't know, even in the beginning when you're, even as a professional, making stuff that's going to like a convention, do it on fan art if you want to. But make actual things. Proof of concepts. You want to be a comic artist? Make your own comic. Print it yourself. Not even to sell it, but to show it. Hey, here's a proof of evidence of how I can make something. Do I have a favorite shadow shading shape? It's triangles. A lot of triangles. Like for instance, right here in the leg, kind of like a triangle shape right there. It's never primitive, It's a little bit organic, very sort of abstracted to a degree. It's more based on location, and I'm using shadow shape to help separate what's in front, what's in back, simply. So then it's used primarily as a communication tool to help clarify the information that's in there. And if it's also like really busy in some areas, I'll just use shadow to knock it down. It's like inside right here, this is gonna be all in shadow. You may think, well, is that adding more detail? No, it's trying to create a lack of detail because details in shadow you can't perceive. To see details, need to be in light. What do I need? What do I believe I need to improve on? Um, Everything. It is everything. Line, composition, all the technical stuff we talk about. I could improve on all those things. I want to. But there's a difference between the technical parts and then there's also the side of the mental side, the more innate, the human side of things. There's a lot there I also want to improve on. Sometimes it can be related to art, sometimes it's just purely related to how I am as a person. Because I certainly don't have everything figured out. but I do have a lot of people that help. I'm reading comments on YouTube, so I have two things going on. The phone camera is recording everything, and on my iPad to the side where I actually have the stream on, and I'm just reading the chat like you guys. What do I think about realism in art? Do you try to enjoy? Do you try or enjoy it yourself? I think of the Michelangelo sort of realism. Well, when you say realism, I was also thinking more about hyperrealism, right? Where somebody would actually recreate a photograph hyper realistically using whatever media, from pencils to color pencil, paints, whatever the case is. And what they will do is like scale things differently, right? They'll take a photograph and make a gigantic scale of it, scale that is. And so it's produced in a manner where it feels hyper real. And it's like as if you're looking into an actual photo. I don't necessarily respond to that kind of work the most. I can recognize the time investment and also the actual technical skill with the material, because you have to be able to manipulate that tool really well to achieve the kinds of sort of effects that you're trying to go for. So again, but that's again now preferentially based on the type of art I respond to. But I don't really respond to that kind of stuff. So, but would I criticize someone who did? Of course not. If that's what you like, that's what you like. I have no argument there, and that's where it leaves. But I'm not gonna sit here arguing like what's right and wrong within art and what's the best or the worst, because it's purely based on your personal taste. But I do like the sort of the realism where it does take from life. It is able to manipulate things like lighting, posing, story, um, content for whatever purposes. There's always some element of storytelling, right? Even in Michelangelo's work, because they're using, let's say like religious context or uh, individuals and people, but they are trying to tell stories through those images. So I think storytelling is what I respond to more. Where instead of like say like a hyper realism photograph of somebody's face like coming out of water, because they want like ripple effects and dripping water and stuff like that. Okay, cool, it's a cool effect, but it's not very deep to me. Not that it has to be deep, but some element at least that invites me into a world would be nice. Do I think that drawing, what I imagine from a book that you're currently reading, is a good way to start practicing drawing from the imagination? Absolutely. That's one great way to do so. So the question was, would it be a good way to practice on drawing from the imagination by taking text, right? Text of any type. It could be a novel, it could be whatever, and visualizing that in my mind and trying to capture it onto the page. 100% sure. What you just be mindful a little bit on trying to refrain from chasing this perfect image, chasing the image as you think it needs to be, and more as an expression of an idea, what the text gave you. And know the fact that it doesn't have to only be done once. So do it once, try it again, try some various outcomes, come to various conclusions, start small, right? Doodle a little bit. And again, don't chase this idea of a single image being perfect. What I love also doing is like drawing from films and movies and doing studies off of frames, and then from there it's like I'll do another iteration of my own or create the next shot, and you can like completely change the context of the story. See how much longer we're going to go here. It's been about 1 hour 45 minutes, so we're probably going to go maybe next 15. Let's move over to this fish over here, and we'll be wrapping up here real soon. I'll take a few more questions. So Brazos asking, One thing I've been wondering, do you find that you break down complex forms into all the core forms equally, or is it cube 98%? No, it certainly is not following the primitive forms at times. In a lot of ways, I'm also taking the primitives and augmenting them, manipulating them. We can start with a cube, but there's no reason why a cube can't be rectangular. We can go for trapezoidal, we can go for hexagonal, we can go for a lot of different ones that are even not so geometric. It can be just weirdly morphed and arced and turned and whatever you want to be. But we start with the primitives. That's a basic. It's like learning the alphabet, right? Once you learn the alphabet, you put those letters together to form words, and you put the words together to form sentences, and those sentences could be poems, they could be literature. So with drawing, you can think of that way. Basically, it's a visual language. But you understand the primitive alphabet, and you begin to be able to then play with the words. If that makes sense. Another way of analogy is music. Learn the basic chords, right? Strum them together the way you want to. Go by your own beat. Thanks for the comments, Kiroa. Do you think drawing traditionally is becoming less and less common? No. There's more so. More interest in drawing traditionally these days. Um, Even though there's easiest access to things like digital drawing, I think it's pretty even throughout. Most people that are a little bit younger generation want to learn both digital and traditional. In case in point about the whole AI talk, the fear of like that whole situation. One of the reasons why, again, I'm feeling very confident about the future is because of the fact that the act of drawing, right, regardless if it's a digital or analog, is never going to go away. And I watched it happen where we're at the workshop in Irvine before Comic Con, and we were drawing live. It was on a Saturday night, and in the front row was a little kid, and he was drawing with us. We didn't even know where he came from and who the parents were. The parents were like somewhere else, and this kid just like walked in and just like started grabbing a piece of paper and started drawing. Um, and his parents ended up walking in, bought a book and stuff like that, and it was great. I've had these kind of experiences in the past often. Kids who just like get pulled into it, they're so interested, and they just want to just start drawing. That inclination, that sort of natural tendency, you can't beat it out of our system using technology. It's always going to be there. Now, based on the environment and your situations of who you know, it may condition you for certain directions. But no matter what, you may end up rediscovering it. You kind of find it in your 30s or 20s or 40s again. It's like you're in a certain job, and those kind of situations are happening all the time. Hopefully, you're being supported and encouraged at a younger age to keep doing it. But for those that didn't, they end up coming back here. They end up coming back to the page. I think it's become so technical these days, and you're seeing so much examples of social media, and even like the thing I'm doing right now. You watch it on YouTube, and people just seem to just do it, right? Oh, you just draw right then and there, um, and it seems so much a logical thing. If I study A, B, and C, then I can do D, right? And you think there's an order to things that everybody does it the same way. And that's the thing about what we do is that there is no one path and one way to do it. Even though schools will build a curriculum that you follow, but there's a problem in that, inherent problem, is that not everybody learns the same way. Everybody responds to things differently. And you have to be able to mature and realize that as you get older, that schools don't necessarily give you the answer, and they're not going to fully prepare you. They're necessary places, but it is then left up to you to be able to discover the next step and how you want to create. So the comment about, how we mentioned of drawing from text and not creating that sort of like expectation to capture this perfect image and being able to just express onto it. It's a difficult thing to do, to honestly do that. It's almost very close to even, some of you maybe it's listened to someone like Bruce Lee. Now that I say that, all of a sudden his words came to mind. Like I didn't intend to be that way, but he has that famous quote, right? To honestly express yourself. And for him, he does it through his body. Here we're doing it through an image on the paper. But I still think that word kind of rings for me, which is actually a very scary thing to do, and not something that most people or even all artists right now aren't actually doing. Would I say that I'm honestly expressing what I'm doing? I can say so, but do I truly know that? Probably not, because it's conditioned by something. It's automated by something, by my training. So to be able to unlearn that is kind of the path I'm on right now. So when somebody said like, "What's my next goal in the next 5 years?" It's kind of being able to identify that part, right? Not to be so conditioned and not to just do the same thing I've done. Trying to get away from predictability, getting into the side of actual trueness of expression, which may not ever happen. But I'm gonna chase it. I'm gonna chase that part. Not perfection, but this feeling. I'm in, how's it going? Am I still doing consultations in terms of like the 1 hour ones? Usually when I do a registration of classes, they will open up, but they kind of fill fast. So you have to kind of look for my next registration times. I only open up 2 seats per session. Those are the 1 hour sort of meetings, but they will be there for the future. So when's the latest ETA in the Dynamic Bible? I wish I could give you a hard date, but I can't. I would love to tell you that it's going to come out by the end of this year. But if I was to be honest with you, knowing the productions of things, this book probably won't come out until next year. Hopefully early next year, maybe March, April. But I wouldn't be surprised if Superani would want to time it with Comic Con again next year instead. Because this is the final page of the Dynamic Bible 2. For those that just popped in on right now, if you don't realize, this page right here at the moment is the last page in the Dynamic Bible 2. Before we wrap up, I'll go through the content of the book if you want to see it. Because this is actually a celebratory sort of moment for me with you guys. So if you're here live with me right now, you're kind of in a special moment because this is me wrapping up the newest book in terms of all the art. This sort of feeling, it's I can describe it to you as best I can because again, right now a lot of you don't have context to it. To you, you're just like, I'm just watching somebody draw, you know. Um, but to me, this is well, what I'm actually doing is something actually quite important. And what it is I am finishing something. I'm finishing an endeavor of something. This book was really hard to get done. This newest Dynamic Bible. You have to understand the old one, whichever Korean copy. I'll do it at the end. I'll talk about that stuff at the end. For now, let's just finish this up and we'll talk about it. But it has to do with this idea of the advice I give to most of my students, which is whatever you start in life, you got to see it to its end. It could be a single sketch, and it could be projects that you approach. It could be the school and the classes you'll go for. See it to its end. And the end doesn't necessarily mean you do it well. You just find out information as to the experience of living. And you may not complete it all the way to its succession, but you try your damn hardest. And that is your finish, right? That is your end. And you move on. You go to the next one. But that's a really hard thing to do, I would say. But something that I think most people need to experience. It's been a sort of a calling card, a word I've used, or I guess a saying for decades now. Finish it. It doesn't matter if it takes you a lifetime. So this book felt a bit like that. It was quite a bit like pulling teeth. Because whenever I work on stuff also, like if I'm drawing my own thing, I can sit there and just draw entirely and get it done. When it turns into like a job or it turns into something that becomes a little bit arduous, because this book is great, it's fun to do, and when I get going, it's awesome. But when it's sitting there, then it becomes pressure. Oh, people are waiting for you. It's like you got to get it good. If this book doesn't do well, then you're failed, like the publisher or Superani or something like that, right? You failed yourself. Those kind of voices are still there for me. So at times they were quite heavy. And then last year I got sick because I got started working on the book again right when I got sick. And so it stopped me completely and I wasn't able to work on it. So it took all the wind out of my sails. So trying to get the boat moving again without any wind, you feel like you're stranded. You feel completely, you know, like there's nothing you can do. So being able to have that moment of like, man, I got to get this book done. Because the publisher is like, Super Honey is telling me, hey, we want to publish your next Dynamite Bible. When is it done? You got it yet? And it's been years. And so here I am now finishing the very last page. So of course, it does feel satisfying, feels good, and I think being able to also show it to you guys, because with projects like this, I actually don't hide them. I like to present them and show the process, like what I'm working on, how long it takes, the actual pages I'm going into. Instead of, a lot of artists will work on projects and you won't see them show it or reveal it for years, and then it's like, oh, I'm done now. Here's the book. Go buy it. Um, I've always enjoyed more the sharing of the process, both good and bad. And I've been able to show the pages to the managers over at Super Honey, and they responded very positively to it. So it felt really good. But it's the same thing, showing it to people on here, and I'm not looking for approval. I'm just saying that, hey, what I hope I can do is show sort of the proof in the effort, walking the walk, right? Because if I can do it, hopefully what that will do is at least give someone else a little bit of fuel to be able to kind of chase that own thing in terms of something they're trying to complete. I keep using that word chase, but maybe another word is, um, I like that wording of drive. So this piece will go in the book, even though it was drawn live, and I didn't know exactly what I was going to end up doing. We have a fishing fish man fishing a fish that's also fishing in the water. Makes no sense, but it was a lot of fun to draw. So it deserves to go in the book. And I will give credit to you guys as well because you were part of the process. You gave me the inspiration and the ideas. You were hanging out and talking, asking questions, and it allowed me to be able to finish this book. So I'll make sure to write that in the book. Obviously, I can't name names. Apologies, but I will say the community that helped out online. When we're done here, I'm probably still going to add a few more things because I'm not completely done just yet. I want to add a little bit more back over here, just a little bit more around here. Not too much, just a bit of decorative stuff. The main components are done. Um, so I'm not going to touch these that much more often, much more that is. Let's put a little bit of a small pipe. Manuel draws. You're mentioning that in the last stream I recommended you take a look at the Discord, and you're part of one now, and has really helped. That's great to hear, man. I'm happy that you're also part of something that's actually supporting you. For others out there that are looking for that sort of experience of being able to work with each other, join stuff like that. Online discords, online communities, drawing together, that sort of stuff. Highly, highly recommended. So, Manuel, congrats, man. I'm glad you found people. Uh, y- so, Ahmed's asking, you have Ron Lemon as a mentor, and he mentioned me and you work together. I'm glad you're with Ron, Ahmed. Yeah, Ron's a great instructor. He's based, I think, still in Encinitas, San Diego. He runs a school called Lemonade. But he and I, yeah, taught together for a while, and I used to teach at his facility in San Diego. When I lived down there. He's a super, well-informed instructor, highly experienced, worked in the industry, still does, but a good one to sort of attach yourself to. So stick with him. Icona Medina. That's Mariano Fortuny. I'll take a look at that. Fortuny. Fortuny? Fortuny. I'll look it up. Okay. Um, I'm going to leave it like that for the moment. Because we are about 2 hours in, exactly. But this one's practically there. It's pretty much done. Let's just punch the line weights a little bit on some of the areas. I'm going to bring in my other pen too. Let's bring in my fountain pen. Ooh, let's use the other one. The big chrome one. I'm just going to just punch a little bit of line weights. Beckles is asking about Stuart Ing book selling signed copies of my edition for the Dynamic Bible. For the first edition, there are plans real soon. I'm supposed to be back in the shop. I'll announce it obviously on my Instagram. If anybody is local to LA, Southern California, areas of Torrance, or even like Orange County, look at the Stuart Ing bookstore. And in the future, very shortly, hopefully, I plan to be in store doing signing and live streaming for producing art in the current edition, volume 1 of the Dynamic Bible. And they will be sold online. They will be sold at their store. So the only place you'll be able to find Dynamic Bible signed and drawn in from me will be at Stuart Ing. Any other bookstore that sells the book only sells the raw copy, so no signing, no art. Unless you come to like a Comic-Con, then I can draw on it for you. But that'll be real soon. Fortunae. Yeah, I mean, if you see Ron, tell him I said hi. He was at Comic Con, but I didn't get a chance to stop by, mainly because, again, I didn't even get a chance to walk around. So I don't even know if he was there, but they usually have a booth for him. These line weights are being pushed just a bit more to kind of bring everything a bit more front. This side of which the plane will have a little bit more of a darker value or texture. I'm also pushing a little bit. Help create separation between the side to the top. Kront Art saying you wish you were in Cali. You're trying to go to Lightbox, hopefully. Yeah, in October. I'll be at Lightbox just to sign and hang out at the Stewarding bookstore. Again, we probably won't have copies of this book just yet at that point, but I will be there just for that particular part. Super Ronnie, unfortunately, will not be there this year due to some of the Lightbox clauses as to what they're upholding. They don't necessarily invite artists back annually every year for their artist alley tables. So hopefully Super Ronnie will be back the year after. But like I said, I'll be there just doing one talk and just only at Stewarding Bookstore. I may not be there necessarily sitting and drawing, participating all day. This year, I'm most likely just kind of take it easy, walk around. If you do go and see me, though, you're more than welcome to stop me and ask as many questions as you want. Well, line weight wise, I'm primarily using it for focuses. These particular subjects, I'm going to focus more. Shadow ideas, aesthetic value, driven by inspirations of artists that I've seen that push line weight, feeling a little bit. I'm probably going to put a cast shadow underneath with hatching going down this direction. In fact, maybe we'll do that right now before we go. Let's turn it this way. I'm going to go this direction. So these lines I'm going to put down are hatching lines, because this line right here is supposed to be a shadow shape or even like a reflection of this sort of dock underneath. Omar is asking, how do I decide between crisp hard edge versus soft gloss edge, especially on hair? Where should we outline stay clean versus blending? Well, again, that's based on sometimes of edge control of the surface of the form. If it's a curved surface, I'm going to have a softer edge, right? If it's a shadow shape like a cast shadow, harder edge. So simply based on light, you can decide that. Light to shadow, due to the form. As you'll notice, my lines will get a little bit thinner, lighter. I'll separate them a bit as I go further back. So what I'm trying to do is give you the impression of the same sort of shadow shape, but also as things get further and further away, a lot of the shapes, a lot of definition will kind of get lost. I want to retain that harshness in the front. There's a ripple effect. You might see some of the reflection of the wood in the water. That's his hand. I'm going to put some effects into the water here splashing. I know that we've mentioned that we're going to shutting down here soon, but I still want to kind of finish these last pieces. I actually really like to just finish this piece before we end today officially. So I think, you know, like I said, I don't want it to like leave it off by saying, oh, I'm gonna add a bit more later on, and whereas like this is supposed to be the actual last page I'm working on. So I don't want to leave too preemptively. Kind of want to place in like silhouettes of fish people back here. Just silhouettes were just like shapes of people. Maybe they have like interesting huts lift off the ground. Multi-tiered structures. Built on stilts, wooden scaffolds. See little flags on them. What are some books I would recommend that would explain how to make visually appealing shapes? I don't know if the book really explains that as much, but the book I always recommend for great sort of educational content is just purely the framed ink. But that might not really go too much into the shape design. Honestly, you're not really going to find a lot of books on it. So it's a little bit unfortunate, but that is the case though. Unfortunately, you can't really find a lot of resource. You can maybe find some like YouTube videos, people talking about it, but in terms of books, not so much. Especially in the kind of stuff that we're doing. You might find some things more based on illustration, fine art, but it's a little bit different than what we're doing now. Let's put another structure back over here, silhouettes. A little village. Draw by saying, drawing from purely the imagination is really hard. You usually need two or three more times to be happy with the drawing, and that's perfectly good. That's fine. You should do that all the time. It's something that I recommend to people that do it from the imagination as practice, and also from study-based methods constantly. Repeat 3 times. Leon, I do not have any streaming times, unfortunately. The best thing to do, again, like I said, is pay attention to my Instagram. I'll post up stories as to when I go live. It's never really planned. It's just one of those things where I just have a moment, pop in, draw with you guys, hang out a little bit, pop back out. I can promise certain days, which I do end up doing, but then I don't always follow through because, again, it's schedule stuff. So a lot of other things are going on. But today I was able to make some time. Hopefully we'll do it again real soon. But I do not have a schedule. Apologies. If this was my full-time job, then, I would do it like once a week or multiple times a week. But that's simply not the case. Unless somehow YouTube paid for me for which I'm sure if I built a subscriber account or ran this like some sort of channel that had that, I'm pretty sure it could. But that's not really what I'm interested in doing. Who knows, maybe somebody can help me with that. Or it gets big enough where, we hit this. I mean, we're almost at 90,000 subscribers. If I hit that 100,000, that'd be great. I don't make a lot of money off of this. I get monetization, but out of a month, I might get like $100, if that. So if you think that, oh, YouTube pays and stuff like this, and you get like 100,000 followers, subscribers, nah, not really. What you need is views, and so my videos get a little bit of views here and there, but you need like millions of views to be able to make a certain amount of money that you can live off of. But I'm nowhere near that. Have I ever used a WP Find Writer? I'm not really quite sure what that is. Do I ever write my own stories back then and incorporate drawings later in my own projects? Sometimes. Like the blacksmith was kind of done that way a little bit. It was mostly drawn with story. I didn't really classically write it like a script. It was written with dialogue while I was thumbnailing. So I don't necessarily write. I can't. I'm not a very good writer. Um, Even my handle of the English language, honestly, is pretty basic, especially in terms of like grammar and stuff like that. I was not that great in school, so I mostly drew. I was a B student, very average. That's a little bit more depth and stuff in the background. I'm not really going to push it any more than that. Adding like darks and details, that's enough. Let's just wrap up a little bit leftover parts are down here because this is the only thing I wanted to get more of, and then we can officially call it done. Oh, Bagels, thanks, man. Appreciate the support. Again, like I said, I will try to come back always as much as I can. And the channel does grow. This is the one thing I love about YouTube is that people that are watching here that are subscribing are genuine, followers. Like on Instagram, I mean, I get thousands of bots that follow me, and you'll see I'll watch the algorithm go up and down in terms of followers like crazy. So it's not really a platform where I get to actually interact with people, nor do I really do with comments and stuff like that. I just don't respond to them. But on YouTube, it's nice because as I'm live, I'm talking to actual people. So, but not only that, I know that when people subscribe, they're long term, subscribers. They're watching this like television. It's just another channel for you, and to just be a part of that channel to watch when you can. That's what I like about it. and it grows real quickly actually. If I am active on this, it does grow fast. So again, it always makes me want to like, I should push this more. I gotta do more on here. But then it's like the classes get busy, freelance gets busy, events get busy. I always joke like in my classes, I wish there was clones of three of me because then I get probably get a lot more done. What's a fancy brand for a travel sketchbook? Fancy. Go to the ones I use, which is the Traveler's Notebook. They used to be called Midori back in the day, but Traveler's Notebooks are really nice. I do like them still. I get them all the time. And get the watercolor notebook in there is okay, but the sketchbook one's really good. You can just refill it. I tend to just buy a brand new leather traveler's notebook because I make each journal its own independent experience. Remington, if you're saying, your sketchbook pages are kind of random mark making things, that's fine. That's what a sketchbook is for you to just explore and express and to figure out things. I have books out there that are not really sketchbooks. They're more illustration books. They're pieces in there that might be used for like book printing or it's supposed to be some level of finality to it. So I don't really call those sketchbooks. And what is the history of Kazone? Kazone is a school, a preparatory school in Irvine, California, that helps a lot of young artists, a lot of times coming out of high school, going to things like colleges for application, portfolio support, that sort of thing. And it's operated by two individuals, Charles Liu and Lim, Lim Her. Lim is my manager at Superani. She manages the U.S. team. And so I have history with them because we're old friends. So I'm actually supposed to go down there at some point soon, maybe in this month. I got to record some demo content for Kazone, being a part of Superani. I think that's going to be actually something attached to Proco, but I don't know the exact details. Steven Zabata, I am familiar with his work. I haven't watched any streams before though. Kron, someone offered to buy your OG Dynamic set. Are you talking about the Dynamic Bible, the book, the original one from 2016? There's a few out there floating. There is actually a copy on eBay right now that somebody put up. It's at $57 right now. It's the original version. I don't know who's selling it, but it's up there. The reason why I search is because sometimes I like to go on eBay and search up somebody selling my stuff, like originals and stuff like this. And sometimes I look for knockoffs. I wonder if somebody's selling a knockoff. I'm always kind of curious like that. You have the original, the 2016 version, the thick one with the watercolor paper. Yeah, I've seen some of those go on eBay for quite a bit actually. Appreciate your comment, Leo. Oh, what the small one? Yeah, the companion also, Krant. That's great. Hopefully, you have a sketch or drawing in there from me. That was probably from the Kickstarter days. If you don't, if I see you at some point in the future for a show, I will happily draw it for you. No, I didn't make very many of those at all. Even myself, right now, I only have like a couple for archives. Most of them are probably either gone, like destroyed or lost or something, because they were so small, little pocketbooks. Um, the content I still thankfully have scans of digitally, but yeah, I made very few of those. Cool, thank you, Krant. All right, so I think we are now wrapping this one up. This one's pretty much done. I'll sign this one. I created a new signature in the last like 2 years ago. That's my new signature. This now becomes from Finland. Nice, welcome. So like I like hearing about where people come from. Usually with these streams, we have a lot of global, international people. Even my classes are a lot of global people too. A lot of people from South America, Brazil, actually, a lot of people from India as well too. A lot of people from Europe, Germany specifically, also Austria. A few people from the northern parts. A lot of individuals from Australia. Yeah, but all around. I don't really get a lot of people from Asia though, for some reason. Maybe a few from Korea here and there. Um, I don't remember if I ever had a Japanese student from Japan um, online. But most of the Asian students might have been from like Southeast Asia, a couple from Korea, a few I think from China, but I don't know. I don't think so actually. Now that I think about it, New Zealand, I love New Zealand. Been there multiple times. San Diego. I've been Germany. I was in Belgium. No, I'm sorry, not Belgium. What am I talking about? Where was that? Sorry, for some reason my memory just skipped out on me. I was in Germany for a show called Playgrounds. Berlin. That's where I was. I'm gonna tear this page out. People from different parts of Germany don't seem to like each other. But that could be also very biased from the very few friends in Germany I was hanging out with that were not from Berlin. And it had nothing to do with the people. It was more like the location. All right. So this is the book. It's done. This is how thick this thing is. This is all Bristol paper and marker paper. And you kind of imagine it this way. Once everything is scanned, cleaned up, obviously printed to be both sides. So, you know, as thick as this is, it's also thicker paper. This will be maybe like a book of this thickness. I'm actually probably going to add more too, if anything, because I have pre-done demo sketches from the past. I may also incorporate. We initially for this book to give you guys a little bit of behind the scenes thoughts. I'm not sure what direction it'll go because Hyunjin, you guys have seen him from Superani. He's the guy with the long white hair and the white beard. He's he saw the work and he's like, man, this is great. There's so much stuff. And he's like, we should split it up. And so we're and kind of keep it to the same type of sizing as the first Dynamic Bible, which I understand. But Lim, our U.S. manager, initially when we talked, we wanted to make this a bit more substantial. We're thinking of trying to make at least 150 200 page book. That was our plan. I don't know if that's going to be the route still at this point. I mean, it's going to be at least 100 something pages. Like, this alone, all this work, it's I lost account. But it's going to be a lot. But I was going to add more. We are going to add a lot more of the demos that I've done in the past related to the subjects. And it was going to be quite thick. But I don't know exactly what the design intent will go to. We'll have to talk to him more. Because he's kind of the guy who makes the design decisions based on books. The first chapter is going to be all on bone structure of wildlife. So it goes into things like, the independent bone, the idea of a stick figure, skeletal man drawing a stick figure, breaking down the forms of cylinders, connectivity, articulation, the different kind of joints, hinge joint, saddle joints. This is a saddle joint. There's a ball and socket. Playing with the joint articulation. Well, we want the price to be in the same area as the first book, you know? We don't want it to be more expensive. But if it's a thicker book, it might bring up the price a little bit. But, you know, it's not going to be like $100 book. Because the original Dynamic Bible in the US is going for 40, 45 at the most. So we want to keep it within that same price point. Going into detail study, skeletal breakdown to the skulls, the 3-step process. Everything here will have notes, information, how to draw the entire skeleton using the balloon and string, figuring out proportions, breaking down the elements of body parts, singular focus studies of limb structure, using the cheetah is what we did over here. What I did, focusing on 3/4 view, that was the side, rendering to the skull, side 3/4 view, full body 3/4 view, taking the one animal and going much deeper, stylistic study of shadow, render of hatching to then shadow shapes, posing study of skeletal, the actual skeletal details, focal points, hatching practices, what direction to go, how to flow with the form, playing with line, being able to move through single motions, creating a little bit more energy, variants of animals. From the cheetah, we go to T-Rex. So from modern day animals to prehistoric, using things like bone structures of any type from natural history museums, full skull, 3/4 view pose, full render. Do I write the text on the actual paper itself? No, I'll do it in InDesign. So I have all the written notes separately. I did them all in the thumbnails. This is the Indian rhino. Oh, I'm sorry, this is a white rhino. Last page of the rhinos, head study, render. And then the second chapter, this is just the first chapter. So the second chapter goes into military vehicles, same sort of thing. Breakdown, side views, proportions. Most of you have seen this sort of stuff. Imagination, generating vehicles that are not based on real ones, but creating military tanks on your own. Being able to build out form, using the box, the isometric view, being able to play landscape to environments using the isometric view itself, setting it up like a little Tinker Block set toy, dioramas, creating actual scenes with the isometric view that goes into details. This is not perspective. There's no depth here. Everything is isometric view. And then we go into actual perspectives. So we talk about the 1 point and simple perspective foundations, using that to build vehicles in 1 point perspective and point of view. The variant process behind it. Going to 2 point perspective, 1 point perspective, 2 point here. Simple grid technique, eyeballing a lot of this stuff. Build out step by step. This is based on a tank idea, but generating, again, our own type of tank. So not being sort of like controlled by the reference too much, but taking the idea of the reference and playing with it. Different angles and positions of views, looking straight on, low, high, how the horizon line changes positions, higher, lower. Again, positions of the cube box. Is it above the horizon line, below it, to the left, to the right, from the vertical to the horizontal? Then playing with a 2 point perspective with the scene where you had the isometric view version, like this, to this. Variant vehicles, Jeeps. This is the second Dynamic Bible, yes. Are all the issues going to be that long? Well, this will compare to, it'll be bigger than the first one for sure. I'm not sure by how much. The first book I think had 80 pages. This should be at least 100 or more. This is a French Army battle tank. Now we're actually drawing real tanks. We talked about a little bit on visual effects. We did it in the first book too. Playing with it on the Sherman tank. That was the second chapter. Now we have the third chapter. Third chapter is equally as big as this first two. So we do fish, marine life, side views, movement, form and movement, 2D to 3D, variance proportions, alteration of the actual forms. We use pyramids and cones, cylinders, and cube forms, wedges, interlocking forms. My teaching is all live, online. It's not in person, not right now. Most of my classes are online. Anatomical breakdown, muscle layers, using a snakehead fish, details, render study for surfacing of texture. The variant style set, simple graphic, less detail, full render. Same snakehead, different poses, different camera, all thumbnailed always, then a render. Movement, pose, gesture, action. Being able to stretch and pull. Pull, stretch. This is a rockfish. Some people said a bass. It looks like a sea bass, but it's a rockfish. The vermilion rockfish. Now we use a specific animal. Angles of views, angles of views. A little bit of landscaping. How do we design rocks, structures, plane change, hatching directions. The vegetation. Vegetation design applied to simple ideas of how to set up a landscape underwater. Think of it like cards in a set applied towards a single image. We did the demo or the sketch of this one live last time. This is movement. Now it's basically examples of proof of an application. Here are all different kinds of animals: sailfish, flying fish, anglerfish. This is a humpback anglerfish. Bull shark, cuttlefish. Every single one of them is showing breakdown, breakdown, breakdown. And then into the final thing that we did today. That plays to the imagination. Done. So that was fun. Either way, thank you guys for joining in live and to be able to spectate, ask questions, interact, and engage with me working on this next dynamic Bible. The next step is to scan all this work, clean it up a little bit. Shouldn't take too long. Probably about a couple day experience. And then I got to do some text information, but they'll be designing the book for me as well too. We're hoping to get everything done here in terms of the book, hopefully by this year. In terms of the finish of the design, printing probably take at least a month. Shipping, getting over here to the US, again, it will take about a month or two. So we're looking at this book maybe being out by early next year. I'm most likely certain that they'll plan it to be coming out by Comic-Con next year. Is probably what they want to do. They'll probably take a lot of pre-orders in the spring, but look for my announcements when the book is complete and announced officially for printing. But for the moment, you kind of got to see the behind the scenes of finishing an actual project. And I hope it does kind of entice you guys to work on your own thing, keep pushing, make your own stuff, get it done, okay? And share it, please. Go to your own shows, Comic-Cons, or online in presentation. You have to sell it, but just show it, inspire others, and go from there, all right? So enjoy, do more drawing, sketch more as much as possible. If I see you guys in person live, we'll talk more then. I will jump on at some point in the stream, maybe hopefully sooner than later. Look for the next maybe week or two. But like I said, I always announce in the stories. And hopefully see you guys back. All right. Thanks for the support. All those donors. Appreciate it, you guys. I'll see you all next time. Thanks.